Today we are going to be making a lot of modifications to our template, so I recommend that you follow along. In fact, what I'd like everyone to do is start by downloading a fresh copy of our millimeter template. I've noticed a lot of students have modified theirs, and so we all kind of have some different settings, which is going to be problematic moving forward. So from our main ROP class website, I have a millimeter template here, DWT. So you'll click on that, and it will download to your downloads folder. And then we'll go into CAD. We will open that file. So here it is in my downloads. Once we open it, we see here that it has our millimeter template, and it's a DWT file, so that's letting us know it's a template file. And then the one change I want you to make is just to put your name here, edit the dtext here, so just double click and then put your last name, comma, first name. And then it's important to go to File, Save As, and you want to make sure your file format is still .dwt. And by doing so, it should automatically select the appropriate location for your template file, which is in your template folder, which is buried in your AutoCAD file somewhere. So again, we'll call this millimeter_template. Make sure you have your file format set to DWT. You'll save it. It'll probably ask, do you want to replace your existing one if you've named your first one correctly? And you will click replace. And then the ridiculous thing about CAD, it asks you these little questions here. So just make sure that you select metric since we're dealing with millimeters. And then it's asking me to enter a template description. I'm just going to leave this blank and hit enter. And it's only after you've completed those two steps that your template will actually save.
Just change the name there and save it. And save it as a DWT and then replace it.
All right, so today we are going to explore something called Paperspace. If you notice in my toolbar down here where it says model, so far we've been dealing with our model space. And you've noticed we've drawn things that are only a few millimeters. We've drawn things that are 400 or 500 feet long. And it really hasn't made too much of a difference. We've just had to change our grid settings and stuff or things like that. But if we go to print, obviously we're going to have to start dealing with scale. So AutoCAD actually does a fairly nice job in how it deals with printing. And the way it does that is we go from model space to paper space. So you'll click on your model here, and you'll notice right now it says model, and then underneath it, mine says layout 1. So I'm going to click on that. And voila, here is a sheet of paper. And I can draw on this piece of paper. Say I draw something like so. But you'll notice we don't see our template at all here. So what we want to do is we want to take our template, because our template is always going to remain the same size. It's just the information that's shown in our template is going to change. So I'm going to select everything here. So just do a Command A or scroll over everything. And then I'm going to do a cut, which is Command X. These are universal computer commands. I'm going to go back to my layout here, and I'm going to paste, but we're going to have a small problem. I'm going to go to paste. I'm going to paste it right in my corner here. And as we can see, my template is a little large for my page. Zooming all the way out, here's my piece of paper. Here's my template. So that could be for a few reasons. I suspect our page setup is not correct. So I'm going to go to my page setup manager by going to File and then down here. And I'm going to edit my layout 1. So put an edit here. And I see our problem. So as you recall, we are dealing with millimeters in this particular template, but we have it set right here to, or at least I have mine set, where 1 unit is equaling 1 inch. So I'm just going to change this to millimeters, which AutoCAD has been kind enough to have 1 millimeter now equals 0.0 whatever units. I'm just going to change this to 1. So 1 unit in CAD is going to equal 1 millimeter on my paper. And I'll click OK, and now things should start looking a lot better. There we go. And then let's see. For today's assignment, I want your template to be 250 by 200. So I'm going to go into my border rectangle. I'm just going to draw a new rectangle here that's going to be 250 by 200. This is in today's assignment as well, but I can see it's just a little bit taller. So we'll delete that. And then now I want to center this on my page, so I'm just going to draw a couple lines here. I'll select everything but this. And I'm just going to grab my center point of my template here and then put it on my center point there. So now I have my template nicely centered. So now when I go to my model space, I know I've done this correctly because I don't see my template at all here, but I do see it here. So now if I were to go and draw something, okay, now I expect to go and see that on my template. Well, I don't. And what we need to do is we need to create sort of a window in our template that's going to allow us to look into our model space. And CAD calls those viewports. And the way to create a viewport, or the command, is mview. So I'm typing mview, hit enter. And looking at my command line here at the bottom, we can see it's asking me to specify my first corner here. And so I just want my viewport to show up in this big white rectangle here. So I'm going to click on my bottom point here and my top point here. And voila, there's my rectangle that I drew earlier in my viewport. So now when I go back to my model space and say I draw a circle, and I go back to my layout, there is my rectangle and my circle. So a few things about viewports. Right now, I'm in my Paperspace, and a lot of you can double click on your viewport. So if I double click anywhere in it, you'll notice now I have this dark, bold line around here. I'm now editing my viewport. So it's basically just like working in model space. If I were to draw a few more rectangles here, and then go back to my model space, I'll see that those rectangles exist there. Okay, I can also pan around in here. So look at that. Move stuff around. I can also zoom. So you can see here I'm zooming in and out. I'm modifying my scale on my piece of paper, but all of my template's text is still staying right where it should be. So this is what we want. And then as I'm zooming in and out, you'll notice on my toolbar here I have my viewport scale. You'll notice that that'll actually move as I zoom in and out. Or I can do this drop down here and I can select all of these common sort of predefined scales. So these top ones here are just sort of standard scales. These bottom ones are common architectural scales. So in the future, if I tell you to scale your viewport to a architectural scale, I'm expecting you to pick one of these. For today's assignment, for the next few assignments, our scale is always just going to be 1 to 1. So just click on 1 to 1. And just a rule of caution, people often pan by pressing down on your mouse wheel. If you do that, it's extremely easy to accidentally move your mouse wheel, which is going to screw up your scale. So if you ever move stuff around, make sure your scale is still set to 1 to 1. And then when you have your scale and your viewport the exact way you want it, it's a good idea to lock it. So I can hit this lock down here. Now I have a little padlock. My viewport scale is now grayed out because that cannot be modified. And the nice thing about that is now I can pan around. If I zoom in and out, it's not going to mess up my viewport at all. Now, another mistake people make often is they say, all right, oh, I forgot to add a couple elements here. So here's a rectangle here. Here's a rectangle here. And there's one here, one here. So I'm all finished with my drawing. But then I go to my model space. Hey, where'd my rectangles go? Well, these rectangles only exist on my paper space. They're not actually in my model space because when I added them, I wasn't clicked inside this viewport. So think of them as they're on top of the viewport. They aren't actually part of my drawing. So if I were to go to my viewport, unlock it, and say pan around, you'll notice my viewport's around, but the objects that I've drawn on top of my viewport are going to stay stationary. Let's see, and then we can also, I can also click on my viewport and delete it. You have to delete your viewport. You can create multiple viewports. So I can, maybe I had like a smaller scaled version up there. Turn that grid off here. So say we had one that was sort of a different scale for whatever reason. So we can have that drawn somewhere else. Delete that. And then that's pretty much it for viewports. I also wanted to cover your layouts. We can have multiple layouts. So by showing our diagrams and layouts, here we have our model space. Here I have my first layout. I can right-click on. Okay, you can rename this. So I'm going to call this particular layout letter. Actually, 8.5 by 11 is a better name for it. So I've created this paper space. It's on 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. A lot of times in drawings, you're submitting stuff for approval, and they'll want it in multiple different sizes. Same drawing, just multiple sizes, different. They want one on 11 by 17. They want it on nice big size paper, and then a few scaled down ones as well. So here's a way you can quickly create multiple paper sizes, still have the same viewport, which is still the same object, so you don't have to rescale your objects or anything. And then, so we can create new layouts in this section as well, call it whatever we want. So let's say this was going to be 11 by 17. So here I just have another viewport that's, I can go in to my page setup manager, and now I'm in my 11 by 17 viewport, and actually edit this to be on different paper size. tabloid. I don't even see it here. Anyway, you guys get the idea. So now I have my model space. I've got my letters size sheet of paper on my Paperspace, and then 11 by 17, which I haven't drawn my template on. Any questions on Paperspace, model space, or viewports?